television, where we keep you updated with all the stories that are happening in Nigeria from our Nigerian newspaper. I am Dailies. Remember, you can be part of the conversation by joining us via Facebook and YouTube, and then you can as well share and like so that other people, your loved ones, can also join and see what is happening currently in the country. I will be doing the program alongside Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Morning, Sarah.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm fine, and I'm happy it's Friday already.
It's Friday.
Yeah. Okay, so we shall go straight into the paper. Rachel will be taking us through the first paper for today.
On Nigerian Tribune, the big story, Damogun's loyalty to Wike sinking. PDP clerk alleges. Asks PDP chair to explain why he did not visit Rivers over lawmakers' defection. You can find details on page 2. And at the top of the paper, Coastal Road, Lagos resident property owners kick against extension of right-of-way. Demolition of first 3 kilometer begins Saturday. Reps Defense Committee receives 23 memoranda, promises to resolve in Briglio. You can find details on page 8. This is concerning what is happening in Okama. You can find details on page 8. Over 10,000 security agents mobilized as PDP, APC, Labour Party on bid about Oyo local government elections. Government declares today half-day for workers. UK supports Nigeria's fight against malaria with £1 billion. Police detain officers over Lutex shooting, confirms death of victim. Telcoms hint on hiking price of data and services. Details can be found on page 7. 119 inmates escape as rainstorm destroys Suleja prison. Details on page 25. Ex-Akeredolu's deputy to fly PDP ticket as Ganduje meets Aiyedatiwa, Jimoh Oke, and others. Details can be found on page 2 and 5. Corruption, human rights killings. U.S. government reports indicts federal government, judiciary, and military. The writer under the story saying 2023 poll reflected popular will, confirms party talks attacked Obi supporters in Lagos. NNPC says logistic problems solved over fuel queues in Abuja, Nasarawa, and others. Petrol sells for 730 naira per litre in Anambra State. Details can be found on page 4, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Blueprint newspaper, coming from Niger State, resident flee as soldiers withdraw after terror attack. More detail found on page 13 of the Blueprint newspaper. And we have Qatar ambassador pledges support to 1,000 Borno orphans. You can find detail in the paper. We have tackled logistic challenge to clear fuel queue coming from the NNPCL. And also on sports, Super Eagles new coach Eno waits in, gives the NFF fresh conditions. More detail in the paper. Now we're looking at the aftermath of the Ondo APC primaries. Rally behind Aiyedatiwa, Ganduje, Bex, Oke, Akifolare, and then Ibrahim and others. Says we cannot afford to lose to the opposition. Ex-Deputy Governor Ibola Ajayi wins the PDP ticket. More detail concerning the primaries in that state can be found on page 8. And then the 2023 polls reflect will of voters despite irregularity coming from the U.S. A report there. Downpour jailbreak, federal government consider relocating Suleja Correctional Facility. Confirmed escape of 111 inmates, and then 10 have been recaptured. So that is to say, leaving us with over 100 more still out there. We hope that they'll be able to capture them back and bring them back to the correctional center, as well as this should give the government enough time to be able to renovate most of these correctional centers. And we have MPAN condoles with Ray Apple as wife dies at 73. And then Hajj 2024, 1,840 seats unsold in Castina, days to airlift. Nigeria third highest in malaria case globally. You will remember yesterday was the World Malaria Day, and here we're seeing that worldwide Nigeria is the third highest despite all that is being done. This is a report coming from the World Health Organization. More detail of that can be found on page 7. Bodo Boni Road federal government orders Julius Berger back to site in 14 days. Peter found on page 21. We have a picture story where we have the former emir of Kano State and former governor of Central Bank, Sanusi, and then we have the vice president, and then we also have the minister of finance and others during the banquet in the Abuja yesterday, a workshop that took place concerning economic and financial industries in Abuja yesterday. So you can do well to get the paper in more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On Nigerian News Direct, federal government set to sell discos to reputable operators in 3 months. Coming from Adelabu, you can find details on page 13. We have resolved logistic issues responsible for lingering fuel queues. Coming from NNPC Limited. 5 arrested for attacking, injuring 4 LATMA officials. And then we have federal government owing workers March-April wages coming from Labor. You can find details on page 13. And then the big story, Vox Populi, we have 2023 election results reflect will of the people. This is a U.S. report. The writer under it saying, as report fingers Tinubu's administration for allegedly appointing corrupt individuals into public office. More Nigerians buy Dangote cement in the first quarter of 2024 as volume rises by 26.1% to 4.6 MT. Ex-Ondo Deputy Governor Ajayi wins PDP governorship primary. Details can be found on page 13. And that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
Rachel, I just want to look at this report coming from the U.S.
Yes.
Here, where we're seeing that the 2023 polls reflect the will of voters despite irregularities, and we know that other reports we had during that, even coming from the EU, the fact that some voters were being intimidated, some were being maltreated during the election, and then given a clear example of what happened in Lagos, where there were, videos flying all around how some of these voters were being intimidated. Others, election, some of the polls had to be postponed to a later date because of certain things that were happening. Talks were out there, snatching of ballot boxes and all of that. And here we're having the U.S. saying that despite all of that, it really reflects the will of the people. And then the writer following that saying that a report is actually fingering the Tinubu administration for allegedly appointing corrupt individuals into office. Even though not all, we've had a pocket of some of the people, such as the humanitarian affair, we're still having things happening presently under that. And then a number of things are coming up, which we believe that it's too early to actually state categorically whether most of the individuals are corrupt or not. But then looking at this report, sometimes you just can't help but wonder. I remember where INEC was against the report coming from the European Union concerning the fact that they said the election was marred with a number of irregularities, and then you remember these technical issues that we encountered when it comes to capturing of the result through the IRF and all of that. Now this report, I think Nigeria is in a better place to state whether did it really reflect the will of the people or not, because I believe that Nigerians are tired of fighting. Back was then where we see people shedding of blood because, this was not my candidate. And we state categorically that, you know what, election will always have winners or losers eventually, but it depends on you if you want to be the loser. And then we saw ever since this administration that have been backlash coming from the Labour Party concerning the electricity tariff and many others, as well as the PDP. Now, I don't know if it really reflects the will of the people, but one thing I know for sure is that regardless, we need leaders that are willing to be dogged, leaders that are willing to, push the will of the people. Because over the years, a number of people have been saying that when you look at what is happening, it did not really reflect the will of the people, starting from the removal of the fuel subsidy. Right now, we're seeing the electricity tariff, and then we're seeing our inflation going high and high, floating of the naira, and many other things. And then we know that all of these policies are actually injuring the people rather than making them happy. But I just hope that let us see how far this report can actually reflect if truly it was the will of the people or it was imposed on the people eventually.
So this is a U.S. report, and it can be sponsored, and I believe it's a sponsored report. Now, whoever sponsored it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't necessarily have to say it's APC that sponsored it. It doesn't have to say it's the present administration. It doesn't. As far as we are concerned, this is a sponsored report by whosoever, anonymous, known, or whatever it is. It's a sponsored report because we've seen a pocket of such reports. Now, who we knew were delegates assigned officially have given their report after the election. And those are the reports we're going to work with, because we won't have a report coming 1 year after election, more than a year after the 2023 general polls, coming to talk about it being the will of the people. In the end, every election, no matter how it turned out to be, is the will of the people. In the end, no matter how an election turned out to be, it is the will of the people. What matters is it the majority will or the minority will? Was the will manipulated or it wasn't? In the end, regardless, whatever the outcome of a result of an election is, it's still the will of the people. But then, was it manipulated? Was it, you're talking about irregularities. What are those irregularities? And if irregularities existed in the election, then how are you saying it's the will of the people? It means there shouldn't be irregularities coexisting with the will of the people at the same time. If it is the will of the people, then it was a very smooth, perfect election. That is what it means for you to come out and say this election was the will of the people. And are the people agreeing that it is their will? These are all the questions. But then we've had the delegates officially assigned that we know the UN, the Commonwealth, the European Union, and every other delegates that we know have given their report, Commonwealth and all of that. And those are the reports we have worked with over the years, over the months after the 2023 election. This is just another report coming out, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. But the question is, do the people feel this is their will? Yes, we have a majority that this is their will, because we can't sit down here and say the current administration was voted in by nobody. It also gained millions of votes. But the question is, what are these irregularities? What are the irregularities out there? And if these irregularities are a big problem, then you can't come out and just say it is the will of the people. But regardless of the outcome of any election, it will still end up being the will of the people. It's just determine whether it was coerced, whether it was manipulated or not, and all of that. But it's just another report, Sele. But we as Nigerians know whether or not that was truly our own will. We witnessed the election, how it went, what happened, and then in the end we will tell our own story, not a US report concerning what the 2023 general election was like.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed concerning all the observations that are coming regarding that election. Let's take a look at the Daily Sun newspaper, where we have reshuffled cabinets to balance equation. From the Southeast, ministerial appointment, ex-police boss tells Tinubu. More detail found on page 27. Still on the Daily Sun newspaper, the big story here saying more hardship as telecom companies plan rate hike, data voice services to be affected. And yesterday, you remember, Rachel, we were talking about multi-choice increasing their subscription. And I said that we've also had that coming from MTN, because it's coming from almost the same place and all of that. And here we're seeing that just when Nigerians are still trying to wrap their head around the tariff hike of electricity, and as well as even the subscription increase coming from multi-choice. And I believe that others are saying as well. Here we're seeing that telecom companies are planning to actually, so that is to say, for example, if you're used to buying 100 naira recharge card and then maybe you spend about 2 minutes, for example, with it, that is to say that you will not be spending maybe a minute or a minute 30 seconds. That is the implication of all of this, because they are going to be increasing their tariff hike. And this is really, really going to affect a number of subscribers that are actually using all of this. So I don't know how the government, even though yesterday you and I said we need the government to come in, we need to review what were the terms and conditions that signed. I remember saying that for multi-choice, I clearly remember an MTN, Obasanjo was on seat. He was the president then. So we need to see the papers. What really did you sign? What was the agreement was like? Because a number of Nigerians might not want to use certain other networks. Why? Because maybe the networks are not really reliable as others. that has been the concern. Because no one just say, if I use this other network, this is the implication, because I don't get, I don't get, like say, I don't get the services that I need. And so I'm just hoping that our government will really step into this. I know that they're having a back and forth between banks and even telecoms concerning payment and all of that. But I am hoping, honestly, Rachel, that our leaders will step in, because if we are having almost everybody's beginning to increase their tariff, Rachel, that means very soon we'll stop using the telephones. We'll possibly go back to where we're using the line, using of our maybe emails, and then the rest of it, because people can no longer afford it eventually. So let us not make this thing looking like it's for the rich, for the elite. I mean, imagine you could send a message to your cousin in the rural area concerning what is happening, not all of this. So let us see how our government can step in and then possibly, put a smile on our faces and see what they will do concerning these telecom companies increasing their tariff.
Seller, from day one, even before now, MTN have been a rip-off to Nigerians. They have been ripping us off. And the reason they are still in business is because every other telecommunication company have refused to raise up to the standard of their kind of service. Their burn rate is massive and crazy. You need to consume MTN data, and you know that their burn rate is like there's something eating up your data. And then their coverage is also wide. Right. While we have indigenous telco company like Globalcom, their network service is very poor, and that is the reason. But their burn rate is okay. They have many plans for Nigerians. When you want to talk about unlimited data, we can give that to Globalcom. And then also we can talk about Airtel. Airtel do have, how would I put Airtel? They are also fast. However, their services is not on the affordable side also. You can say that they do not have plans that will accommodate the masses. The only that could have rescued us is Globalcom, and they have refused to widen their coverage, to improve their network strength and all of that. And I believe that that is why Nigerians, we are where we are, not because we do not have other options, but the other options are not, upping up their games. If there's any word like upping, they're not just reaching up to that standard that they should. Because when we talk, one of the slogans of the last administration is everything Nigeria, let's consume Nigerian-made things. And it would be great if we had Nigerian products that are reaching up to the competitions of what we have out there. And Glow would have been that perfect. And for me, it's necessary to call these telco providers name by name, because with or without tariff hike or increase in service or data prices and all of that, MTN have been ripping Nigerian off for a very long period of time, and nothing has been done about it. We have the NCC busy bothering Nigerians, not like it's not important, but busy bothering us about linking NIN, BVN, and all of that. And yet we are at the mercy of these service providers, and they're just eating and eating our money. And it's almost like something like data. I keep saying we are moving to a place in Nigeria where certain things is beginning to feel like you have to be in a certain class for you to have access to it. It's beginning to feel like data is supposed is until you are boxed up, until you are rich before you afford certain level of connection, data, network services, and all of that. And it's very sad and unfortunate, because we are having bodies that are supposed to make that easy for us, focusing on the things that they are not supposed to prioritize as much as the other. Let one come first. It's all about priority when it comes to our government and what people are doing. So even before now, we've had it. What about the charges? What about the VAT that we're always having left, right, center? It's not now. So this tariff hike might just be announced, but we've known the massive ones that have happened in the past, and then nothing has been said about it, and then we just move, we get used to it, and we move, and life is getting very expensive at every level. There's nothing we consume in Nigeria right now that is affordable. There's nothing that is affordable. It's not affordable. Everybody is just surviving, but our standard of living keep depreciating every single day. And then it is sad because now these things have become part of what we need on a daily basis. True. Yes, banking have been digitalized, so whether you like it or not, you need these telco services. We have many other things that we need to access through these digital services. So we can't sit down and say, well, you don't need it. It's important. So we can't sit down and say we don't need it. It's important. But what is the government doing to make sure that these don't become services that are supposed to be there, become something that looks like it's not meant for everybody, but it has to be for somebody else? So we'll just have to keep waiting to see what the Nigerian government of the day, if the past have failed us, I hope that the present administrations will not, and they will do something drastically that we will really feel the impact of certain things.
We'll keep pushing for it, Rachel, because just like you said, let it not get to a point that it looks more like for you to access the internet needs to look like it's luxury. It's not luxury. There are people who study online. So imagine where you have to keep burning data upon data. Why? Because you need to meet certain things. I hope that the government will step into and also rescue its people. Still on Daily Sun newspaper, IPOB denies attacking Northerners in the Southeast, detail found on page 5. Still on Daily Sun newspaper, Abia North Kalu deserves our support and commendation. Coming from ex-Abia Deputy Speaker, hails Senator for execution of project and purposeful leadership. 119 inmates escape as rainstorm destroy prison in Niger State. 10 have been recaptured. UK support Nigerians fight against malaria with £1 billion. We are making progress against the surge coming from the federal government. And on Lagos Calabar Coastal Road, demolition of structures begin tomorrow. Federal government terminates 121 billion naira Abuja Lokoja Bini Expressway contract. And coming from Ondo, Guba Ajayi emerges PDP candidate Ayeda Tiwa false claim of rigging of the APC primary. Ganduji appeals to aspirant to work for APC electoral victory. More detail found on page 26 and 27. Airlines spent 46.8 million naira on expertise quota in 2 years. Detail found on page 24. We have two pictures story. One, we can see Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State after meeting with the Minister of Work, David Umahi, in Abuja yesterday. And we also have another picture story down, the chairman of the United Nigerian Airline, and then with others during a strategic meeting with Dangote Group in Lagos yesterday as well. And that's all on Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, dollar demand pushes naira to 1,420 naira to a dollar. And so, like, quickly, I just like to say something about this because when we Nigerians were getting excited that the naira was appreciating as against the dollar, but one thing that we failed to understand, that it was very artificial. Whether you know maths, whether you know economics, whether you know or you don't know, it's very easy for you to say it, that the federal government of Nigeria was just trying to pull off a magic. I kept on saying it. It looks it looks like the federal government, and I mentioned it. I can't remember whether it was here or on the other show, Nigeria Now. I can't remember where precisely I said that it's more of the government trying to clean up what they did. That is the depreciation of the currency, where we're reaching almost 2,000 naira against the dollar, and then now the federal government is trying to pull it off and like clean it and bring it down. But what we refuse to acknowledge is the fact that it's artificial, in the sense that this appreciation is not through sales. It's not sales, rather through trade. The word is trade. It's not through production. It's not through trade. It's not by the influx of investors into the country. That is, it's not that we saw a period of time within 1 month, where we had investors intruding like in their large number coming into the country. Rather, we're seeing them folding up. We're seeing PZ Customs saying, you know what, we are going. And then not because we are trading, not because of our trade surplus. We're not having a trade surplus. We're having deficit, where we are even seeing cocoa and farmers and all of that not reaching up to production and all of that. And then secondly, we are not even, it's not because we have started consuming, we're not importing petrol, or rather we are exchanging crude oil with any other currency. It's not through trade. It's not because our production have increased. It's not because of investors trooping in. And within a short period of time, we saw appreciation, and we're still seeing depreciation. And our reserves is declining because we are seeing that the reserve is going low, and Cardoso is assuring Nigerians that, you know what, our reserve was not used to defend the naira. But then what is happening now? What demand of dollar are we talking about? Was it that there was no demand in the past 2 weeks? Or what is the federal government of Nigeria and the Central Bank of Nigeria trying to do concerning our dollars against it? Because once it starts this appreciation, they can't repeat what they have done in the past again. It will be at the detriment of other things. We might see our reserve depleting, because even if you deny and say you did not use the reserve to defend our currency, why is it depleting? And then why are we now seeing that the appreciation is not sustained but is now going back? So this, for me, is worry. I'm worried because this is a very bad, dangerous red flag. Let me put it like that. And we just have to wait and see how things unfold. But this doesn't say good is waiting for us ahead.
Honestly, Richard, because it seems every day we keep saying that the naira is going backward. Yesterday it was 1,003. Today we're seeing 1,420. I don't know what it will be before the end of today. And then through the weekend, before Monday, I don't know how the market will be closing. But just like you said, it's not like we saw a massive production and all of that. And we've said it. I don't know how else we are going to profile maybe our own recommendation of what should be done about this whole thing. But I hope that the government, just like you keep saying, they are intelligent. They know what they should do at this point in time. Of course, we do not expect magic that all of a sudden, because this appreciation did not even last a month, Richard. It didn't last a month. It has gone back again.
We're just looking at 3 weeks or so.
You get. So I'm just hoping that they know what to do to make it to sustain and all of that. So let's keep our fingers crossed and see how it's going to look. But I'm hoping that by talking about by the by Monday, we should be able to see something massive. Well, let me just give it by Wednesday, which should be 1st May, and all of that. Let's just see how it's going to look eventually.
Still on the Punch newspaper, NNPC blames logistics for worsening fuel queue. Senate panel seeks extension of 30 trillion naira loans probe. You can find details on page 30. 4 million UTME candidate not admitted in 4 years. This is an investigation. You can find details inside the paper. The big story, Forex. MTN, Glo, others seek NCC not for tariff hike. Telcos risk shut down without tariff increase to offset rising costs. This is coming from Alton and Adcon. Operators await NCC approval as regulator reviews tariff bands and operating costs. You can find details on page 29. Federal government may relocate jails as 105 inmates flee Niger prison, and this doesn't look like a maximum security prison. It looks like a government secondary school.
Richard, not even
in a local government.
This looks like an abandoned building.
This doesn't look like a maximum security prison in any way. Like anybody can break out even without a storm or any rain. It's really sad, Sele. We just hope that we have a government that is willing to work and improve the situation of this country, because I know we're trying to have hope as Nigerians, but when you see things unfolding, you can't just help but wonder, can this hope, how long can you hold on to this hope? Because we are here. So it means we are hopeful that Nigeria will get better, because we are in the Nigeria. If it doesn't get better, it means bad. So we can't be in Nigeria and say there's no little hope somewhere that it will be better. And then, but when you keep seeing things unfolding the way they are. It's heartbreaking on so many levels.
Rachel, before we go further, you remember there was a time we saw pictures of some of our police barracks. How it was looking dilapidated. You just cannot wrap your head that human beings are living in this way. And even talking about security agencies that are supposed to be comfortable, and even if they are not living there, I mean, when, let's say for example, maybe military barracks, for instance, you leave your family there, then maybe you are being stationed to a state somewhere else. You should be comfortable. Your mind should be aware that, you know what, my children, my wife, or whoever I left behind are doing well wherever they are. But that is not the case, Rachel. So if we are not taking care of our security agency, how on earth are we supposed to even be taking care of prisoners?
Yes.
Which it's supposed to be a place where they should be corrected. Rachel, all the prison does is just, you know, it's just something of the mind. Because ideally they're supposed to have good shelter, good food, good water. Everything should be provided. The only thing they are denied of is going out. That is the only thing. And then no wonder we see when you go to some correctional center, that's where you see them get involved in other skill acquisition, just so that you keep your mind working. But Rachel, how can, just take a, this is just Niger. So I don't know how other correctional centers would be. I've not been to every state in Nigeria. But I'm just imagining, let's go, for example, go to Abia. How is their correctional center?
Like,
let's go down north in Borno State. How is the correctional center? So I'm just hoping that when we see pictures here, this is an eyesore. This is really an eyesore to us as a country, that people that are living in such a place, just like you said, you don't even need, even a primary school can just push the wall and it's down. So I'm just hoping, honestly, this is really not a story that this really got my heart, and I just hope that the government will do something to fix this place as soon as possible, so that the inmates in it can also be comfortable. The fact that they're in prison doesn't mean we treat them less human. I remember where we saw how much we do feed inmates, and then we feed the dogs better than the human. What are we saying, Rachel? So I'm hoping that we can do better, and I'm hoping the government will do just that.
And few more stories on the Punch. Akeredolu's ex-deputy Ajayi wins Ondo PDP ticket. And mother electrocuted, 2 children hospitalized. This happened in Ogun State. And then Dangote forex shortage delays crude supplies. And that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
All right, before we continue with the paper review, we would love to take a break. We have said quite a lot, so we would love to also hear your own views. So remember, you can drop it on our Facebook, and when we come back, we will continue with the paper review. Please stay tuned with us.
Democracy is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday, 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice.
Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies. We have been looking at a number of stories on the paper, the primaries in Ondo State, and then as well, we're seeing, talking about the inmates that escaped, about 119 of them from Niger State as a result of a heavy downfall that fell. And actually, some of the sites of the correctional center was being affected. So 10 have been recaptured. keeping about 101 out there. So we hope that they will be recaptured, brought back, and then the government will do something to fix the correctional facility there. I still have Rachel Tenze with me. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sally.
All right, let's take a look at the Daily Times newspaper. No Nigerian territory in the northeast under the control of terrorists, says theater commander. You can find detail of why he said that inside the paper. And the big story here say, resign, don't allow PDP to collapse under you. Clark tells Damagum, accuses the party chairman of backing Wike's role in Rivers Assembly crisis. More detail can be found in the paper. 111 inmates escape as heavy rainfall wreak havoc on Suleja prison. And we have on Bondo Bonny Road, federal government orders contractor to return to site within 14 days. Or, so you want to know what the or is, you can read detail on page 5. TUC rules out possibility of the new minimum wage by May ending. And we were supposed to have that by April. I wonder why we're having it May ended. Blames the federal government of non-completion of negotiation. Carpets the federal government on unilateral hike in electricity tariff. And I remember where Labour was saying that they are hoping that as a gift, Workers' Day, that is when we'll have the new minimum wage being unveiled. But from the look of things, maybe by end of May, if this is what the paper is really saying. And sure. I don't know. You know, Rachel, I keep saying that I hope the committee will do what they need to do. They should tidy up what needs to be tidied. But where this is April is almost finished. Today is 26, so we have 4 days to round up the year, the month rather, and then we're yet to hear what is it. And then here we also saw a paper that said March and April wage has not even been given to workers. I just hope that our government will treat these civil servants like human beings, because they are being treated like they are really slaves. Imagine you work for something, but you do not even get your wage as it's supposed to. Ideally, by 25th, 26th, you should have your salary for the month. But then reverse is the case. I don't know. Sometimes when you see things like this, you start to stammer because you don't know what to say for situations like that. But I'm hoping that, you know what, we're just being hopeful in the midst of all of this thing that something will be done. And then downside, we have Lagos rescued 13,000 out-of-school children in 4 years. More detail can be found on page 5. We have a picture story where we can have Rita Dominic and her husband. And then this was during the Miss Nigeria organization, during a visit to Miss Peride by the, I think this was just during a program that was being organized by Miss Nigeria. So you can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of any of the stories.
On leadership, the Friday edition, 119 inmates escaped. Federal government may relocate Suleja prison. Residents sent presentations to panel by courier. This is concerning Okama. You can find details on page 6. The big story, 11 months after subsidy removal, Nigerians still face fuel scarcity and long queues. PMS sell for 690 naira, 730 naira, 800 naira, 820 naira, 900 naira in major cities. NNPC blames logistic issues, cautions against panic buying. And we have a picture where we can see queues in Abuja, Kaduna, Kano, and Owerri. You can find details on page 4. Ondo governorship race now for Akeredulo's deputies. Details can be found on page 14, and that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, complacency, negligence, we have how weak power lines, vandalism, worsened electrocution incident, where we're seeing that between January 2022 and February 2024, about 117 to 132 kV and then 330 kV electricity towers have been vandalized nationwide. Over the last 6 years, the power sector reported about 543 deaths, 303 injured, 1,928 health and safety accidents. Licenses with the highest number of casualties in the third quarter of 2023. You can see the various places, and then we have the TCN and Kaduna Discos had the least number of casualties. That's one each in their quarter. So you can read more detail of what this power vandalism is doing, the incident is causing, and we hope that something will be done for those who are found doing that, because it's leading to more deaths, and then we really need to do something about that. More detail of the story can be found on page 4 and 5. Dana Air refund passengers as NCAA announces suspension. Gunmen assassinated Katsina APC boss and one other person. Unite, Rivers government tells resign Wike loyalists. Detail found on page 3. Stakeholders worry over possible collapse of $76 billion telephony sector. Suleja jailbreak, federal government to publish names of 105 fleeing inmates, rearrest 14. Well, we see that the guidance having a different number, where we saw 10 in other papers, but here the guidance is saying 14, and then 105 are still out there. More detail found on page 6. CBN license unified payment as second provider of PTSA services for Nigeria. And on oil theft, Navy chief extend Operation Delta Sanity by 90 days. Continue importation disrupt fuel supply amid local refineries. And then court adjourn MFD's trial to June 24th as U.S. indicts government. Detail found on page 3, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, the big story, Tinubu, I take tough policy decisions in people's interest. The worst of the storms over, Dutch businessmen to invest $250 million in Nigeria. I am a determined leader. I will continue to take the difficult decisions that will benefit our people, even if there is short-term pain. I am unafraid of the consequences once I know that my actions are in the best long-term interest of all Nigerians. This is a statement from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and then we will wait and see if eventually there will be good results in the long term. Why I Came Hard on Dana Air by Keyamo. Aviation Roundtable kicks. Manhunt for 109 fleeing prison inmates. Olubadan received Mogajis, and we have U.S. report 2023 election, a reflection of Nigerians' will. Although PDP picks Ajayi. You can find details of this story on page 26, 5, and 4. 2024 capital releases begin next month. NPAN condoles with Ray Epu over wife. You can find details on page 5. APC will agree onto aspirants with all-inclusive government slots. How recapitalization of banks will boost economy. This is coming from the PwC. Ex-Senate spokesman Oyogu Eze dies. TUC demands payment of February-March wage awards. You can find details on page 3. That's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
On Vanguard newspaper, NNPC IPMAN resolve logistic challenge as petrol queues persist. Our universities promote ethnic bias, coming from Bishop Kuka. Edo Guba PDP to unveil 200-man campaign, cancel Obaseki heads advisory committee. Party will be unstoppable, coming from Omobayo. Commend engineers for supporting Obaseki on development. Detail found on page 7. Audit report declared Dana Air unhealthy for operation, coming from Kiyamo. The big story, Labour Party PDP kick as U.S. report says 2023 poll mirrored Nigerians' will. With the rider report admitted APC rigged the election, surprised over its conclusion, coming from Labour Party. We won't allow Nigeria become one-party state, coming from the PDP. It's welcome, but we don't need external validation, coming from the APC and the presidency. Says vote was not suppressed in Lagos. You can find more detail of all of these on page 5. Tinubu Dutch PM discussed trade as investment rise by $250 million. We will recall that the president is there in Netherlands to talk about trade and other things as well. And then from there, he'll be moving to Saudi Arabia for a summit as well. So you can find detail of that on page 25. 119 inmate escape as heavy rains destroyed Suleja prison. Boko Haram sack military camp in Niger. Bandits attack Emir in Zamfara State. And a report coming from Okwama, communities shun House Committee investigative hearing. Federal government, states sign accord on economic and financial inclusion. And we have from sports, we have here that says sports minister won't force a coach on the NFF, coming from the ministry. More detail found inside the paper, and that is all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On Daily Independent newspaper, telcos fear revenue loss as Starlink targets data market share. Push for upward tariff review says economic challenges affecting investors' confidence. Tinubu markets high-grade lithium deposit in Nigeria to European government. Fubara to CNS, fulfill your mandate, end oil theft, waterways crime. Any government that takes us away from where Buhari kept us is supported. A statement from Koka. You can find details on page 7. Fire raises part of Lagos Airport Old Terminal as fan diverts flight. Dana air suspension directive similar to interference in NCAA autonomy, coming from an aviation group. Security operatives launch manhunt for 109 fleeing inmates of Suleja prison. Leaders of 18 nations urge Hamas to release hostages. Details can be found on page 7. Still on the paper, NNPC explains fuel scarcity as it bites harder in Abuja and Kaduna. At the downside of the paper, Ondo Guba, ex-deputy governor Abola Ajayi wins PDP ticket. Details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
Let's round it up with the Business Day newspaper. And on the Business Day, we have telcos renew push for first tariff hike in 11 years after rare losses. How ex-REA boss was fired for fraud he exposed, detailed in the paper. Businesses relieve as Apapa Oshodi Expressway breathes again. Jollof rice hit 16,955 naira, now a once-a-month affair because the ingredients are quite expensive in the market. And on investigation, new multi-choice ID card raises concern amid 80 billion naira in NMC budget, need registration struggle. More detail found inside the paper. And we have a picture story where we have Samantha Power, the administrator of the United States Agency for International Development, with the addition, where president of the African Development Bank, after signing of a memorandum of understanding between USAID and then the African Development Bank group to finance women fund managers in Africa to support women on climate change situation, and that held in Washington recently. You can do out to grab the paper and read more detail of any story that is of interest to you, and that's how far we can go on the program this morning. Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sarah.
And also thank you to our viewers. Thank you also to our followers for keeping a date with us. Until we come your way next week, do have a great weekend ahead.